Hey there guys, this is War Machine 395. I'm going to try and go through this quick. So this is July 1st, so happy Canada Day to everybody watching. Alright, so this is the refined new Gundam, or Re-Nu Gundam as it is. That was suggested by Juno and voted on by not a lot of people, but I kind of like the ring of the name anyway, so it works out well. So my plan for this was to take my old new Gundam kit, the old Master Grade, and make it into some crazy high mobility plan, and it looks the part, I think, really. I kind of wanted a machine that would have widely varying weapons loadout, and it's very inspired by Advance of Zeta, like the shield booster, the super scram engines are kind of like this particular part harkens back to the Hazel 2, okay, the tri booster, and the shield booster itself is kind of similar to Hazel 1 custom. Anyway, those ideas in particular. The long rifle is another part. I think that's Advanced Hazel's rifle, that it's very close similar as these two. Alright, let's see here. So we gotta talk a little bit about what I've done for equipment, because I spent a lot of time on that. So one of the first things, of course, was that shield booster, because again, I was going for a very high mobility kind of look. So the shield booster was one of the first things to go on. So I built up a super scram engine and a beam field emitter onto the back. Now originally I had planned like scattering beam cannons and stuff, but that was too much. Didn't go with it. So the beam field emitter allows this thing to create a bubble around itself, so it can, or at least a forward-facing bubble, so when it's traveling this way through air or space, alright, if it hits debris, the debris won't punch holes through it because it's traveling too fast. It'll hit the beam field emitter, and it gives it better aerodynamics, because let's face it, this thing's blocky, and Gundams don't look like they travel that fast. So these boosters here, these two, the super scrams, those were an idea that came about on the forum. Materia suggested Vasimir engines, and I was going on about scram engines, but scram engines don't work outside the atmosphere. So basically the Vasimir acts as a supercharger for the scram engine. It speeds up the fuel going into it so that it can work outside an atmosphere, and it doesn't need a startup speed. It doesn't need to be going at Mach 2 already before it can actually fire. Alright, so those are the boosters, and then the next thing I added were the fuel tanks. The fuel tanks are, of course, a necessity given that it's got some crazy high output boosters. So these are like twice as big, I want to say, as the originals that were on the new Gundam. So it should give it a little extra boost in fuel, at least. And next thing we've got is the variable mega rifle. Alright, Mark II. Alright, the first one was so unwieldy that it kept making the arm droop by itself, which was a little much. So I upgraded to something that was much smaller. But really, this is kind of cool. I'm really proud of this. Is that the barrel is actually the same length. What I did was shift the length of the barrel so it's behind the trigger, kind of making out a bullpup, right? It's so the barrel extends underneath the arm as well, or no, it kind of ends here. So from here to here is the barrel. Kind of cool. All right, my next thing was this right here. This is the heat knuckle. It's a combination eye field heat knuckle. So the heat part is an offensive weapon. The eye field, the defensive part, basically it uses a rather extreme version of a heat pump, kind of the same idea as an air conditioner. It cools down the eye field, but heats up the knuckle. So the knuckle can strike another MS, melt off an arm, overheat a reactor, blow it, burn some batteries, that kind of stuff. Very extreme take on a heat weapon. It does, however, have one drawback. If it heats up too much from too many, well, using the eye field too much to deflect more beam hits, it will heat up so much that it can cause thermal runaway in my own suit and melt the arm off. Could be problematic, so it needs to be purged. If it gets purged, then I lose the use of my eye field. Unfortunate. Next thing was my heat saber, okay, or heat sword. It's a heat long sword, really. I used the dimensions I was talking about earlier, and this is the second version, Type B, I guess. I had 2 copies of this printed off. So a cold version is at the hip right there, and I just swap out the sheath like this, okay? And this goes in hand. So I've got a hot version for in hand and a cold version at the waist. And my next part was a beam pistol. Alright, that also goes on under the side skirts by magnets. Kind of a cool addition, I thought, anyway. So I figured that can kind of fill the hand after, if not, the heat knuckle gets purged. And it gives it an extra little bit of offensive capability. Let's see, talking a little more weapons, we've got the Vulcan guns in the head. Those are standard. Then it's got a 60mm machine gun in the right forearm, and a beam saber stored in the left forearm. All standard. I didn't even take pictures of the beam saber, to be honest. Alright, so strengths for this kit is, of course, it's extremely highly mobile in space and in atmosphere. Weaknesses on the same note are it can't do anything in water. It's got nothing. In water, it's completely useless. The beam field emitter and the shield booster gets overwhelmed and it does nothing. So basically no mobility in water. It can still use the heat saber. Can't use any beam weapons in water. The heat knuckle still usable, and the 60mm machine gun on the forearm also usable, but no beam weapons. So it cuts its offensive power down by quite a lot. Alright, continuing on strengths again. The armor is, of course, a Gundanium armor. I left the paint really glossy, which is unusual for me, because that's kind of like the equivalent of a anti-beam coating kind of idea in Gundam Build Fighters, is what I've noticed recently. What else was there? It's a master grade. It's kind of like the real grade system, but better, because it's a master grade. I kid, but I'm not really including that. I think I wrote it in the strength section on the backstory, just because I could, and it seemed hilarious. So I don't care that much. Let's see here. I think that's about it for strength. It's very fast. It's got quite the firepower in this variable mega rifle. The weaknesses I already mentioned. The heat knuckle can overload. If it loses the beam field emitter on the shield booster, that's quite a limitation. So gotta watch out for that. I think that's about it. I'm going to show you some pictures now. Okay, so links in the description for pictures, but more will follow. So thanks for watching, guys, and see you at the next video.